I love watching that customer experience come to life, and I love watching my staff, contribute to that, like treating every guest as like, it's almost like a challenge. How am I going to make this the best experience for this person?
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. The success of any restaurant is reliant on the sum of many parts, where those with skills in specific areas work together for a common goal to deliver their own brand of dining excellence. But this doesn't necessarily deliver success and longevity. What does it take to maintain success over long periods of time? Marilyn Annecchini is a co-owner of Pilu at Freshwater and Acquafresca by Pilu. Marilyn, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Anthony.
It's good to have you on the show. You've had incredible influence on the dining landscape, not only in Sydney, but in Australia for almost 2 decades now. What's it been like to sort of think that it's been almost 2 decades?
Yeah, it's hard to believe. We've been at Pilu at Freshwater for 18 years this year. And really it doesn't, a lot's happened obviously, but gosh, time flies. And we're really excited to be still relevant in this scene, I guess, because people come and go. But we love it. We're very, very happy in Freshwater. We took over Acquafresca a few years ago, and we also run the Pilu Baretto, which is our smaller kiosk. But it's great. We love what we do still, which is important. But yes, we've seen the dining scene change over the years, not only in recent years, obviously, for obvious reasons, but, we've been through economic downturns, we've been through amazing highs and lows, but it's amazing, almost 2 decades, and you're right. I no longer consider myself one of the younger restaurateurs, put it that way.
Give us a sense of what things are like. It's been an upheaval for everyone on the planet in the last couple of years, but what's it like now at Pilu, and how are things trading? Pilu
at Freshwater is doing really well. I don't like to dwell on the negative. Obviously, it's been difficult for everyone. So we were kind of lucky, maybe because we are in the suburbs, and during lockdowns, people worked from home. So it was actually quite good for us in terms of we did takeaway, and the Baretto stayed open. And so I think because people were not travelling into the city, maybe that helped us a little bit. And then when we reopened numerous times during those periods, there was always a really keen interest on dining out. And maybe people were spoiling themselves because fine dining was really, really popular, and it has continued to be so. We, of course, struggle with staff shortages, COVID illnesses, all those kind of things. But otherwise, we're doing really well. We're very happy to be there. Lots of functions, weddings, a lot of postponed events, obviously. But it's lovely to see people out and about and just enjoying themselves.
Has this experience, has it changed the approach that you have with the restaurant or the offering? Have things changed as a result of the last couple of years?
I think so. When we reopened after the second lockdown, because for a time we were doing things like degustation only on a Saturday, set price menus and things like that. And then before the reopening, we decided that we wanted dining to be less restrictive, and I really wanted people to come back to the restaurant with a sense of joy and just an excitement to be out again without putting too many restrictions on people, but giving them the options to really splurge if they wanted to. So we took away the restrictions. We still had the offerings of the degustations and, the caviar and lobster and things like that, and we found that people were really interested in eating that way, but they also loved the fact that they weren't restricted. We offered a lot more sharing options, which is something very new for us at Pilu at Freshwater, and it was really because people were coming back in groups with families and friends they hadn't seen for a while, and really this sense of joy of eating out together again. So that was one of the changes. We've had lots of changes over the years. We try to stay relevant, as I said, in the ever-changing business, but that's probably the main one in terms of a menu. Our service has also always been very warm, welcoming. It's like, coming to a home, and whilst we maintain a high level of professionalism, it's still a very welcoming and inclusive kind of service.
You mentioned about staying relevant and longevity and the importance of that. What does it take to stay relevant? How do you approach that when you have successes as a restaurant model already?
Staying relevant is not only about the menu, but it's also about, having a look at what's out there and what the dining public are looking for. We surround ourselves with like-minded individuals in terms of the people that we employ, but also the networks that we've formed. Both Giovanni and I are very active in this industry, involved in various associations. We like to keep abreast of what's happening. We try to eat out as much as possible. We used to travel a lot. We talk about restaurants all the time. Our closest friends are restaurateurs. It's kind of, it's not a negative thing that we're always thinking about work. When you own your own business, and we're very family, it's a family business. We don't have any investors. We don't have anyone backing us. So it's in our best interest to do everything we can to stay relevant and to make sure we're doing the best we possibly can.
I want to talk about what you and Giovanni have created there at Pilu over the last 2 decades, but take us back to when you were young. You grew up in Sydney's north. What sort of role did food play in your family?
So my parents, obviously Italian immigrants. Food was a huge part and still continues to be. We come from a very large extended family. My grandparents were market gardeners. My grandmother's still alive. She just turned 100 last year. So, she's the central, she's our matriarch. And so food is something that brings us all together. It always has. So we have an extended family of about 60 people. So all our events, they were Mother's Day, Christmas, Easter, they were always huge events, and they still are because of her, really, that we all still get together. But, even growing up, my parents both worked really hard. My father's a concreter, still pours concrete today. And so, they're working hard. And so I'd have to come home and Mum would say, okay, there's the stuff. You need to put the sauce on for dinner, or, that minestrone in that pressure cooker has got to be ready by the time I get home. So it was very central. And we did all we had tomato sauce day, and we were often in the farm picking vegetables with my grandparents, because then they'd take them to the market the next day. Yeah, it's always been very central and still continues to be. Yeah, we love it. Can't get enough of food.
You mentioned that your parents migrated from Italy. Whereabouts were they from, and what's the food of that region?
They're from Abruzzo, which is on the Adriatic side of Rome. I always say, if you know where Rome is and you just go towards the Adriatic. And they both actually, even though they didn't know each other growing up, they both come from the coast of Abruzzo. So the Adriatic side, lots of seafood. Mainly a seafood diet, I have to say, from them. Homemade pastas, all that kind of thing, vegetables. The cucina povera that we talk about here was something that they experienced. For them, it was not a novelty. It's what they lived and breathed.
Do you have any memories of certain dishes or feasts from when you were young with your family?
So our feasts are always huge. So there's always a really big antipasto spread, and that would always include vegetables that were homegrown. So my grandmother makes this great frittata with artichokes, for example. Even though she's 100, she kind of doesn't make it anymore, but she did until very recently. We always start our big celebrations with these. It's actually sweet. And so they're kind of like a donut, but they're elongated with sultanas in them, and they're fried and covered in sugar. And we call them shushi. I don't actually know what the correct word for them is. But we always start with sushi, and so she now oversees the production of the sushi. Then there's always a homemade pasta, whether it's lasagna or tagliatelle with a really rich meat sauce normally, and then lots of roast meats, whether it be baby goat, suckling pig, mainly those two. And there's just obviously abundance. And yeah, that's it.
You weren't necessarily destined for a life in restaurants and owning restaurants. And tell us about the early years and where your career was going before you made the change into hospitality.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't interested in working in hospitality because, I mean, food was integral to my life, but it wasn't something I ever thought I would pursue. I finished school and actually wanted to be a vet. I studied science for a while at university, and then I decided that wasn't for me and did a degree. You'll laugh at this one. And it was a very new degree, and it was called Leisure Studies. And it's a BA, it's an arts degree. And I did it when it first started. And anyway, basically I took the track of tourism marketing and PR. And so I ended up working for Ansett in the day for many, many years. And I loved the airline industry. And I did all facets of it, from customer service right through to commercial sales, which is where it all ended when the airline went into receivership. And I was also on my second maternity leave then. But I obviously developed a passion for travel, but really marketing and customer service became my focus. So I think that's probably where it came from. And then when the airline did go into receivership and Giovanni was running Cala Luna then at the Spit, I decided to join him in that business. And we bought out our business partner, and it just worked really well. I looked after the front of house, he looked after the back of house back then, and then eventually we moved to Pilu at Freshwater, which is obviously on a much larger scale. And so, yeah, my focus today is on the front of house side, but really the administration and everything else that really doesn't involve kitchen.
What was it like for you those first couple of years at Cala Luna? You had the customer service experience, but it's really face-to-face with restaurants and hospitality. What was it like for you?
I'd actually done a lot of waitressing through university as well, so I was quite familiar with that side of the business. But it was full on because, like, you know, we were quite young. Yeah. Coincidentally had a baby within a couple of months of owning that business. And we learned a lot, but it was, I don't know, when you were younger and a bit more naive, you just kind of take more risks, and it was exciting. It was a very small restaurant, as I said, very hands-on, and it was challenging, but we were doing things that, you know, other Italians hadn't yet brought to the dining scene because Giovanni's focus was on his region of Sardinia. So it was really well accepted, and so that helped, obviously.
You mentioned Giovanni's focus on Sardinia, and back in 2004 you decided to open Pilu at Freshwater. How did you find the site, and tell us about that period of time when it was gaining momentum to open that site for the first time?
So the family who own the premises, which were back then the Freshwater restaurant, which is obviously an iconic building, and it had been a restaurant for almost 20 years, and then many other businesses before then. But the owner of the premises was kind of known to us, but he approached us and asked us if we were interested in looking at that venue, and we were really excited too. Giovanni had always wanted a restaurant by the water, and it just all fell into place. But, you know, going from a very small 30-seater, 40-seater restaurant at the Spit to taking over those premises where we are today of, you know, over 100 multifaceted functions, events, all kinds of things, it was huge. I don't know, I said we had no fear. We were just so excited. We just did it. Maybe we were crazy, I don't know. 2 young kids as well.
What were the challenges of that? Because the building's a beautiful old building. Were there restrictions with what you could do and the ideas that you had when you were getting started?
The building was quite run down, unfortunately. So we spent quite a lot of time just redoing the interiors. And all of a sudden we had all these things like we had interest from people who wanted to have their weddings. Like, we'd never organised a wedding. I had no experience in that. So I called up a friend of mine who I knew had a bit of experience. I'm like, Angela, we need to do this. Like, you're my new wedding coordinator, and we're going to put together a package and sell it to these people. And people came through, like, we were under construction, and people would go, oh yeah, and this is going to be the dining room, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to look fantastic. Anyway, it worked. Many challenges, mainly because of the size of it. We had to employ so many more people. We had to employ a head chef, because up until that time, Giovanni had been the chef, and he couldn't do something on that larger scale on his own. We employed Daniel Mulligan, who is still a great friend and a great chef. I think it was just the scale, and we started to slowly recruit people, as I said, who were like-minded. Like, if there was something I didn't know, like the weddings and events, we found people who could work with us. And that's how it all started, really. And it was, we made lots of mistakes along the way. Like, on opening night, there were glasses smashed and it was a disaster. But we persevered, obviously. It was worth it.
Well, the restaurant has won so many accolades, and too many to list here, and its influence is incredible. What was a real turning point for the restaurant from your perspective with its success?
I think it was probably our first review from the Sydney Morning Herald, which was pretty significant. I'd say it was like within the first 6 months of opening that we were reviewed and received 2 hats straight off the bat, and were then recognised as Best New Restaurant. And it was hugely emotional, but it was pretty significant. And from then, we really took off, I have to be honest. It was pretty significant. What
sort of pressure did that place on what you wanted to achieve? Did it change the operations and the focus for you guys?
No, not at all. It just made us more committed to the fact that we knew that we were on the right track, that we had chosen to specialise in the cuisine of Sardinia, and it's what people were interested in because it wasn't readily available anywhere else. And we stuck by that. Like, we didn't, Giovanni was importing botarga and pane carazao and using ingredients that hadn't been used before, and we stuck to our guns, and we still have to this day. Obviously it's changed and there are modern influences and things, but no, we really stuck to our guns, and I think that's really what has served us well.
You mentioned some of the influences from your travels over the years. You actually met Giovanni in Italy. Do you have any stories of those trips that you had where you've taken inspiration to then share it with the Australian restaurant industry?
We travelled a lot. I did meet Giovanni unexpectedly in Sardinia one year. And I took on a waitressing job and he was cooking, so we worked together in those very early days. But every time we travelled back, Sardinia was always the focus of our travel, and we went to places like the Agriturismi where, their specialty was always going to be the suckling pig, and even though we'd been doing suckling pig for a long time, we took that back and we perfected it. But even our travels to amazing Michelin-starred restaurants, our favourite still is today Dal Pescatore, still a 3-star Michelin in, it's not Modena, it's near Modena, I think. It's in Mantova. And just what I find most inspiring about that restaurant is they're a family-run restaurant, but their level of service is what we aspired to. And we brought a lot back from that experience in terms of the genuine warmth and the professionalism, we're really proud of that kind of service that we offer today. And that was quite influential, that trip. We've been to Can Rocca, we've been to Noma, we've been to all these places, and you always bring back something. But I always say to our team when we come back, had this experience, it was amazing. We also went to lots of other restaurants, but I have to say that we always come back and go, you know what, you guys rock. You guys are amazing. In comparison to, because, the rest of the world is also suffering with staff shortages. They always have been. I say, you guys are amazing. We actually do a really good job here. I go away probably to remind myself of that.
You mentioned how Giovanni was putting on a focus on a cuisine that wasn't really well represented in Australia and bringing ingredients in. The Italian has really had an incredible evolution just in the last decade with sort of regional offerings and a lot of energy and different operators. What's it been like for you as someone that's been around with a restaurant for such a long period of time to see this new energy?
Oh, we think it's amazing. When we first started many years ago, we formed a group called CIRA, which I'm sure you remember, which was the Council of Italian Restaurants in Australia. And the founders of that were Giovanni Armando Percuoco, Lucio Galletto, and Alessandro Pavoni, and then lots of others joined. And, the reason why we formed this association was to preserve the culinary culture that was kind of developing in Australia, the Italian culinary culture. And back then, we were doing Sardinian, and Armando was doing Neapolitan, and Lucio was Ligurian. Back then, Alessandro was doing the food of Lombardia. And then it wasn't a lot more than that. But as the years went by, and it's so amazing now to see, every Italian restaurant now can really identify with a region. Even if they're not just doing one region, they do regionality really well. And that's what we wanted. We just wanted, to preserve that. And so when people go to Puglia now, they can identify with what the real food of Puglia is, and often because they've eaten it in Australia as well. It's I think it's amazing. It's really great.
You're also a founding member of WAR, Women and Restaurants. Tell us a little bit about that and what impact it's having.
So WAR started kind of off the back of CIRA, because Anna Pavoni and myself and Michelle Maiale were the other half of the chefs, basically. So we were the wives, and we attended CIRA events, and we were, I was a secretary and Anna was a treasurer. And then we thought, I think there's something here that we identify with each other and what we do, and we were kind of a support already, but we thought if we get a bigger group of people together, of women restaurateurs, and there are a lot of us, then I think we'd make a really good network and a support network. And so Anna kind of is the go-getter, and so she kind of formalised it, and we created WAR. And we have to say that I know that it has been hugely helpful for us and the women who are in it, and we're a great support network. We gather often. We have a WhatsApp chat, and really, especially in the last couple of years, we've been huge support for each other. We bounce ideas off each other. Some of us are competitors, like Anna and Alessandro are my best friends, but they're also our closest competitors, right? But we share so much and we support each other. And I don't know if there are many other industries like ours that exists. So amongst us female restaurateurs, and, I think the criteria was that you had to own a restaurant, because if you've got skin in the game and you're an owner, the discussion and the conversation is a little bit different to being a female restaurant manager or a som or something like that, and not taking anything away from those people because they're amazing. But, the risks and the responsibilities that we have of restaurateurs were different. So the conversation was always a little bit more, it was different. Recently Anna organised a great conference where we all got together and discussed, coming out of COVID and where we're headed. And, we talked about staffing, obviously. We talked about the supply chain. Yeah, it's just amazing. Amazing. We love it.
You're regarded as one of the country's best restaurateurs. What's your approach to being a great restaurateur and delivering that great experience for customers?
I think, like I said earlier, I do like to surround myself with like-minded people. So I find that, if, I get in there and I do the job, right? I find that if I'm seen to be a leader who is approachable and, a bit innovative, a bit exciting, then people will want to work with us. I'm a huge advocate for this industry, even though it was never where I was going to go. For me to bring a young person into my business who's completely green and fill them with excitement and the desire to work and stay in this industry, nothing satisfies me more. and we do that a lot. I find that, I had a lot to do with the Appetite for Excellence Awards as a judge of the young restaurateurs when I was with Lucy Allen and Luke Mangan, and they were fabulous awards. And, just the satisfaction of seeing these young restaurateurs come from being, one or husband and wife team, and then, speaking with them and encouraging them to, just persevere basically. And, what I'm trying to say, basically, yeah, like it's a challenging industry, but once you've got someone on board and you can nurture them, it's a great feeling. And I think that's probably one of my strengths as a restaurateur, is really about getting the most out of people.
You mentioned some of the incredible husband and wife teams that create some of the best restaurants in this country. What are the challenges and benefits of being in that situation, of having a family and running a restaurant at the standard that you do?
Look, I think from my experience, from Giovanni and I have totally different skill sets, so that kind of works. We don't obviously we cross over, but he's very focused on kitchen, menu, and that operation, and I do everything else behind the scenes. That works really well. It is challenging working with your partner. No one's going to say that that's easy, but I also find it hugely satisfying. We work really well together. I couldn't imagine doing this with anyone else. Like I love that we work so well together. And most of the people that I know who are like me, whether it be Anna and Alessandro, Eugenio and Michelle, Armando and Gemma, who have always been our mentors, and Sally and Lucio Galletto. I don't know why it works, but you just got to. I'm happy to kind of also take the back seat. I don't mind that that I'm not in the newspaper and that I'm not, the face of the restaurant. I know what I do is hugely important, and it wouldn't be the success it is without what I do. I'm really happy with that. I think, yeah, whatever works. Yeah.
Well, the influence of Pilu at Freshwater has been incredible on so many lives. But what do you love about what you do?
I really love the customer experience. I love going to work every day, and whilst I'm not always on the floor, I am at the moment because we're a bit short-staffed, but I love watching that customer experience come to life. And I love watching my staff, contribute to that, like treating every guest as it's almost like a challenge. How am I going to make this the best experience for this person? I love that it's an ever-changing industry. And with all the struggles and all the challenges, I love the fact that every day is a new day, and every customer has a different story, and every staff member has a new challenge. Putting all those pieces together for me really excites me.
Well, Marilyn, it's an absolute honour to have you on Deep in the Weeds today to hear a bit of your story. And I know that the many meals that I've had at Pilu have certainly changed my life, and hopefully they do continue to do that. Please keep in touch, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.